85. So if you can really, really concentrate on those, it goes through this really interesting moment of postmodernism and semiotics, right? Yeah, so you know, so Wednesday we'll be doing the Jameson article, right? So feel free to look at the beginning and the end, but specifically look at that section. Can't see. 71 through 85. So I think that looks like it's section 3, 4, 5. So sections 3 through 5. Yeah? Has anyone started to look at the Jameson article? Anyone's familiar with it? So that'll be great. So I think today is actually a really good day to talk about ethnography, because Dwight Conkergood does an excellent job of taking ethnography in the postmodern moment. So sometimes to explain something, it's good to have an example. So today's example is how ethnography wasn't postmodern, and now it is postmodern, and what is the difference? And hopefully that'll give you a nice lens to look at Jameson and what Jameson's talking about. Someone once told me that if anyone tells you they understand what postmodernism is, it means they don't. Right? And I was like, haha, exactly, that was my reaction. I was like, haha, you're so clever. And then I went to grad school, and I was like, oh no, now I do. Like, I actually do understand postmodernism. Right? Or like neoliberalism, like these words that float around. I think postmodern work is my favorite because it kind of explains how things are upside down, how things kind of don't make sense. Like an example of things that like the bad means good, right? Like that's bad. So bad means good. So it's kind of how meanings have begun to shift. How do I explain this? I'm just going to explain postmodernism. So, did I explain the difference between modernism and postmodernism? I told you about the train. Yeah, the choo-choo train, and it's on modernism, and it's all going towards progressive town. Progress town, not progressive, progress town, and not everybody's on there, people get off, and it's postmodern. So Dwight Conkergood is talking about ethnography, and I think you all should have done like multiple ethnographies by now, right? Aren't a lot of your WAC assignments ethnographies? Yeah, tell me about some of those assignments. What do you know about ethnography? What did they make you do when they give you an ethnographic assignment? That was funny. And it was like, yes. It's like a dance.
Well, some of us were in the ethnography class. There was like ethnographic methods or whatever, and it's basically like a big project that you do for the whole quarter, where you choose kind of like a setting or a community that you are like somewhat a part of or something, and have some relation to. It can be on campus or like just in a way outside of school, and you go and conduct interviews and do observations, and like what's it called? Observations is the thing we did.
Participant observation?
Yeah. And you like aren't you're trying to be objective, but also know that it's subjective, that like you're part of the experience that you're in, and we're not like looking at whatever community as like the other, but as like what's our positionality also within this space that we're investigating.
Oh, great. So how is that different from when you had to do like a report, right? Like I went to, you know what I'm saying? Because in lots of ways it can feel like go to this museum and then come back and do a report, right? So how is an ethnography different from like an investigative journalist? Right? Like go tell the story or do a review of the show. How is an ethnography different? Because it's a method. Alyssa.
I was going to say it's different because it's more of they want it to be more of a conversation and
Okay.
less of like one person being spoken to and there was some quote in the reading that was like, the ones being spoken to, the ones being looked at versus the ones who are looking.
Right, the ones who are looking, who are being looked at, the ones who are speaking, and the ones, right, yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
I get it, yeah. Okay, so, there's more of a conversation, what else? Like, because it's a method, and it's a method that's widely used. It came from, anthropology. Is it any, taken an anthropology class? Yeah? Yeah, what was anthropology like? What's anthropology?
I think anthropology would be more of the scholarly observation and writing about it than ethnography or doing this article talks about like field work, shifting from observation to participating, like what she said.
So, the rub with anthropology, and it goes into ethnography, is that anthropology is a social science, right? So it's not a humanities. So let's talk about the difference between the humanities and the social sciences, because those are two different colleges here, right? Yeah, did you have social sciences? Like, what's in the social sciences? Sociology. Well, I'll start writing it down. So these are disciplines, right? And disciplines are weirdly made up. Has anyone heard of Open School for the Arts? Yeah. So I helped open School for the Arts with Lonnie Berry, and we wrote the mission, and we talked about it with Tor Musgrove, and we decided that we wanted it to be like a different school, because it was Jerry Brown at the time was the mayor, and I don't know if you know Jerry Brown, but Jerry Brown's a little bit crazy. He lived in a weird commune building when he was the mayor of Oakland. It was always like, hey Jerry, what's going on? So anyway, he decided he was going to open two schools, and one was an art school, and one was a military school, because he wanted to see what happened. And Oakland School for the Arts was the art school, right? So he hired my mentor, Lonnie Berry, to be the executive director, and we wrote the, so the way we did it is all the teachers had to co-teach. So all the English teachers had to work with the theater teachers, and they had to work together. And the math teacher had to work with the visual arts teacher together and come up with different classes. And the social studies was taught with dance, right? So the teachers were always together, and they were always teaching it in this context, because Lonnie really didn't like this idea that disciplines are pulled apart. Like, why would math be different from visual arts, right? Why would dance be different from social studies? Why is English a different school and there's another school for theater? Do you guys get this? So we wanted to kind of erase those disciplines, because disciplines are a way of organizing our thought. It happened with the Enlightenment. Prior to the Enlightenment, if you went and got a college degree, they taught you three things. I think it was like astronomy, physics, and something else, right? So, okay, so do you guys get what disciplines are now? They're constructs, because there really is no reason why math is a separate, you guys get that? Your brain is one thing, and yet school, and especially colleges, have different schools. Like, Los Angeles is very unique in that theater and film is its own school, and that's because we're in LA, right? But usually it's squashed together with the arts. Yeah? So there's two schools, right? And one is the social sciences, and the other is the humanities. Right? So let's talk about the difference. I'm trying to think what these majors are. If you guys know, that would be helpful. I think for the social science, it's sociology, anthropology. I don't know if these are the ones humanities is music. What else?
English.
History, English. I think the languages, right?
Yeah.
History, English. Kenny, I like your hair. I just think because you're a Spanish major, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Sorry, that just wasn't some weird line. Oh, and you know what? We should probably put the arts. Because y'all know your school really well. So the School of Arts and Architecture, here we go. And here we have WACD. Is Ethno still in? No, Ethno moved. It used to be here.
No, it's part of the school music.
Oh, it so moved over. So now music has its own school?
Yeah.
Oh, this is new, right? Because this was not happening when I was here. So this is music. Oh Lord. You guys hear random, like, music is like here, but anyway. It's not in the arts. Yeah. Like I just had lunch with Bob Ian, who teaches that soundtrack class. Why does he not teach here? But he teaches over there. It's very random. So music now has ethno. What else do they have?
Music history.
Music history, which I don't know why it's not over there. Where's art history? Is art history here?
Letters and sciences. So I think, well, it's because now I think we have social science and humanities all under letters of
Oh, they put them
letters and
together.
sciences.
This is letters and sciences
And like art design.
Yeah, and actually.
and the hard sciences.
Hard.
Oh my God, the way the school is organized. I'm gonna put like sciences like this. I'm gonna write South Campus.
But then engineering.
Oh, but there's engineering. And I think
Engineering
there's
is its own
nursing.
school.
And nursing's its own.
And nursing's its own school. Oh Lord. Okay, but are we kind of getting a sense of where things are? And I think the School of Letters and Sciences, that's the undergraduate college, right? So this is one thing. And you should probably know this about the School of Arts and Architecture. We're a professional school, which is different, which is why we have an emphasis on professionalization. This is why we have mixed genre. No, what's that art? Digital media arts.
Desma.
That's not.
Media.
Design media arts. Oh, don't tell them I messed that up so bad. And then we have art, architecture, which I don't understand why it's not over there with engineering. Anyway. You guys get this? Okay. So how is it within the School of Letters and Sciences that social sciences and humanities are different? Because they are both the study of people. Right? So the humanities, remember I told you the difference between a discipline and an area? And a discipline are your goggles. So you can either use your history goggles or your English goggles, which means narrative. So if you're an English major, you look at everything through a narrative. What is the narrative that's being told? If it's through history, you look at everything like historically. If it's in area studies, you can use any of the disciplines to look at the area. Yeah? So both of these are the study of people, but why are they differentiated? How are they different? Any guesses?
I mean, there's like overlap in them, but I feel like the ones on that side are more rooted in like text stuff, whereas anthropology I feel like is a little bit more rooted potentially like tiered, like if that makes sense. I don't know, like I think of history as like the study of like text,
Right.
and English is like text and language, maybe different, it's like spoken, but
I mean,
Because
so
you could
just saying that language is literally just the same thing as English.
Oh, but
Like-
it's like hegemonically awful.
Yeah, it's like that we think that English major is different from any language major, but you're also looking at literature and analyzing
And
different
narratives.
text. And when I say text, I mean including like film, music. It's not just literature.
Right, but in a different language.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I didn't know that. Because so it's not like learning, it's not like Spanish 1.
It's like, yeah, it's like if you're a major,
Right.
it's kind of like supposed that you already took the classes to get up to the level to actually start analyzing
Right.
all the literature, but it's not that you're learning.
So do you think that you understand Spanish-speaking cultures more with your education in Spanish?
I feel like I do because it's like, again, along with all the literature, we're getting a history lesson, we're getting a cultural lesson, and with all the literary movements, you get an understanding of what is shaping all the the different genres that are appearing, but also in historical context why these genres are appearing.
So you're getting the discourse by learning the code. Remember when we talked about the code is how language is built? And so this is the study of people through this, right? So, okay, and this is more like stuff, like archaeology, right? Like material goods. What else? We're very close to the difference. They're both the study of people. This is looking at,
Is this,
yeah.
to frame it, would it be like looking at products and then looking at producer kind of thing?
Like this is producers? And this
No,
is,
no, other way.
oh, these are producers?
Yeah, I was sorry, Spanish came out. Looking at human, like looking at the human being as a producer, and
Right.
then looking at the products that the human produced, and analyzing that.
Oh, okay. I hadn't thought about it that way. Maybe. I can see that. But I think this is also looking at how like things are written. Yeah? Yeah, Anna then Riley.
And something about like observation sort of versus like fact or like I don't know or like what was it? Empirical.
Oh, empirical data.
Yeah.
That's very close. That's we're all getting there. Yeah, so this is empirical data, right? Where I don't know what they call it, but they would call it like works of art, or like an English a book, or sometimes when music is in here, it's like a score, right? Those kinds of things. Riley, any
Well, I mean, like, they kind of split it up, like, in our G's, they go, like, historical analysis, and then they go, like, social analysis, so, like, something that's, like, been written down, something that's, like, preordained, versus something that's, like, you can kind of be, like, you can, like, deconstruct it, kind of.
Which one would you deconstruct?
Like, sociology and, like, anthropology, because you can kind of, like, go into, like, for example, like, you can, like, go into, like, ethnographic, like, studies and stuff like that, and you can learn, like, I guess, like, things that weren't entirely like written down, you know, there's like, oh, there's some histories about like this, or there's other histories about this, or this is like a form of storytelling that comes from like a different culture, where it's like with history and like English and like language such as that, it's like kind of just like how the ways in which it's like been done like traditionally, I guess.
Wait, so you said storytelling would be an examination of storytelling here?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be this one?
I guess so.
Yeah. It's very difficult, right? Like this is a major conversation they have in the disciplines all the time. The main difference is the method, is the methodology. And social sciences uses the scientific method to study people. So they'll do like data, empirical data, and the data is like surveys or analyzing behaviors, doing ethnography, but it's a soft science and it wants to be a science. And for there to be a science, for it to be scientific, it's like this is correct and this is false, right? Whereas in the humanities, right, it's an analysis that doesn't necessarily look for right or wrong. It's like, what about it? Well, I can say that it's highly gendered, or I can say it is not as gendered, or that this narrative is talking about a particular period in time. Do you guys get that? So this is really about data and analyzing the data, right? But where it gets tricky with ethnography, which kind of lives like somewhere in here, which is why you, who are in the School of Arts and Architecture, are using a methodology which comes out of the humanities and does not come out of the arts. See? Right? Because ethnography is the observation of people to do an analysis. It's the observation of events and communities to find out about those people. But isn't that the same as history and English?
I mean, I was gonna mention like, a lot of the sometimes theory or like framework that I get here, I also do get in the Spanish department, like Orientalism and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's like
where does it belong? And why are you learning it like in two different places in two different ways? Do you guys get, it's not like a checklist where you go through, right? So these are different methods. And so this article is specifically about ethnography and problematizing ethnography when it used to belong to anthropology. Remember my grandmother, Saria, who was never a subject? She was always like, I'm Saria. It's like a little kid, what's your name? And they go, me. Or like when you talk to a little kid and they're like, do you guys remember when you learned your parents' name? Like their first name? And it was a little bit weird when you would hear people call your mom by their first name. Did anyone ever try to call their parents by their first name? Did you try that? Did it stick?
not really.
Not really. Okay. Right, like my sister tried it. I'm gonna call you Tony and Carmen, and it lasted like 10 seconds. Because they were like, excuse me? Right? But you guys get it? So she's never really, like my name for years was Mommy. And I'm also known as Siam's Mommy. Siam's Mommy. You guys ever go to a school? And they'll say, Anna's Mommy. And your mother will answer. Isabella's dad. And your dad will answer. Do you guys get this? Yeah. So we're here in anthropology, and I think I'm not going to do a different color. So this really relies on modernity, right? Because as it's going through with its empirical data, it has to put things in categories where things belong, because it's about modernity, and they're on the progress train. And in order for the progress train to move forward, there has to be science. So you have to prove stuff, because you're going to Progressville. Does that make sense? So ethnography lives here, and Dwight Conkergood is saying, I don't think it should live here. I think it should live here, where we're doing an analysis of works. Because how different are these observations from a historical account? You guys get it? Yeah? And that's why we move into postmodernity. Because he's like, get off the train. Get off this train and stop thinking that you could possibly know anything correct or incorrect about people. You just know people. Is that helpful? So that's the purpose of the article, right? So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, and I'm hoping that this gives you a way to enter into Jameson. So they start talking about why ethnography is problematic. So what have they told you in ethnography? Because I heard bits and pieces. I think Alyssa said it's supposed to be a conversation, right? Alyssa brought up how it's there's the one speaking and the one being spoken for, right? So what have they taught you about how to do an ethnography? Well, Anna told us that, but I'm hearing this the talk of like othering and the subject. What's the issue with that? I felt like there were warnings. Like when they taught you to do ethnography, they were like, oh, but don't be an anthropologist. Don't be an armchair anthropologist. Did you get that sensibility when you were learning it? Yeah, what were they warning you about? What were your teachers warning you about? Yes, Anna.
I think about like making sweeping like statements or judgments about like a community, and even viewing a community as like a community. Like you're,
Right.
Like even
Like
just
those
that.
people.
Yeah, like I think the article talked about like the other as the theme versus like the other as interlocutor.
The one who's, yeah, the one who speaks.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think like I remember we read it like a few times. Black.
Is it the Clifford Gertz when he goes into Indonesia with the cockfight? I had to read that like 8 times. We're all naming all the ones you had to read. Which one, Saeed?
The other.
Oh, the other? Saeed, the other.
The one about like Americans. That's like
Oh,
very
no.
right?
No.
Like America backwards. Where
Oh.
It's like the classic like anthropology thing where like they're describing American practices and like
It's
rituals.
Like the dentist
Yeah,
makes it
going to
longer.
the dentist or like getting like plastic surgery or Botox.
So it's making Americans like the subject.
Yeah.
And they're saying, don't do that.
And it's like shedding light on how like you can make any subject sound like this foreign like thing, even to us, like that we do those things when we're reading it, like, oh my god, this is so crazy. So they're
Yeah.
don't do that.
Like, oh my God, the code that they have taught me, which is why they don't let me write in first person, right, is omniscient, and it's usually, and they won't let you write in the passive voice. Have you noticed that? Like, why can't I write in first person? It's my paper. And why do I have to write in an active voice? Why can't I talk in a passive voice? Why can't I write that way? Do you guys ever wonder about that? It's like the bane of my existence. That is
Oh,
valid.
yeah, just going back to the Nasarama thing, 'cause, like, and I think it's like, it was like very eye-opening when I read it. But one of the things that I think is so interesting about it is that, like, reading it, it's not wrong. Like, the connections that it's
Oh.
pointing out are, like, not, like, there's this one part and he's like, and they put so much emphasis on the way that they present, you know, their physical, and like all these things,
Right.
and it's like, it's true, like,
Right.
it's just not the way that it's understood internal, like,
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, but we never it's not, and I think it goes back especially to like, oh, and that, you know, it's this ritual that they do where they get up and they look and they go in the mirror and they, you know, brush their, you know, and it's like, it is kind of a ritual that we do when we get up every morning and we do this, but it's not understood with the same sort of like significance, you know, that
Right.
it is when you're within the culture, and that was like the big thing where it's like, it's not wrong, but it's like, it's putting emphasis and significance and importance in places that like when you're within the culture doesn't exist.
Right. Like, it's not like church.
Right,
So
it's
it's not really a
not church,
ritual.
it's
It's me
not-
getting ready in the morning.
Yeah, and so that I feel like was the big thing where it's like it could very well be that like you go into a place and you make connections that are like like that you notice and like they're true, but they have very little to do with the way that those things are actually understood.
Okay. So you
About
can-
that article specifically, like what it points out about some in that particular case.
And you can be a little upset about it. Like, that's not right.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how did you get that wrong? Right. Okay. So I feel like you've been warned off in dangers of ethnography, right? Yeah? So what does Dwight Conquer Good offer as an intervention? He offers the body and performance and rhetoric. I may be overly happy about how he does that. So let's talk about the body. What is this? He embodies, because he's trying to move it from a science away from here into arts and humanities. Because he's like, what's the difference? These disciplines are random. Someone just makes a decision, and all of a sudden the way we see the world, the lens we use, and our goggles have to be used all the time rather than using our complete experience, our complete observational space. Right? So, how does he offer the body as an intervention? What is it about the body? That sounds very whack. The body. What is it about the body? Has anyone gone to church where they talk about sins of the body? Right? Oh, I'm seeing nodding. So what do they say about the sins of the body? What are you supposed to do when your body wants to sin? I think they mean sex. I don't think they mean overeating. And they're carnal. Your carnal needs. You guys know what yeah? Alyssa?
Yeah, it's not right to have like sexual passion and use your body in that way because your mind and your intellectual thoughts should be more of the forefront. When it comes to, I'm blanking. Yeah, your spiritual life, it's
Like your
more-
spirit is separate.
They think it's more advantageous, I guess, to like use your mind rather than your
Advantageous, and that's how you're good at that religion,
body. Yeah.
right? It's because you're relying on the spirit and not the body, not the carnal body. Okay, what are other examples of where the mind is over the body? Which is very Western. This is very Western. We're really into thinking. like this classroom, like the fact that you are not moving and you have to sit very still and listen to me talk, and I don't even want to hear myself talk. Right? Like I would much rather have this conversation over dinner, which would be like super exciting to me. Maybe we go someplace. Like we go someplace, or we play categories, and we're jumping up and down, and we're laughing, and we're really, and somehow I'm maneuvering it where we're learning about ethnography. I don't know, right? But this thing is because you're supposed to keep your body still, so that your mind can work. I don't even get that. I had to get a standing desk.
Yeah, I feel that. I like can't like come up with what to write a paper about. Like I have to go for a run to like.
Yep. I got the IKEA desk with a little crank. And sometimes I crank it up and I'm like, okay. And I go like this, and I go, what am I gonna say? And I do that my little ritual. I go like this, and then I don't actually push on the buttons. I just make that clicky sound. And then I walk, and then I'm gonna say, and then I do this, right? And then I can crank it down. And it actually happens, right? Yet, it's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be very still, right? So that's another way to emphasize the mind over the body. Yeah, Isabella.
Oh yeah, it's interesting what you're talking about, like the movement too, and like the idea that somehow like that's removed from other sensory, that like because smell and like that's especially for memory, and I feel like especially in our like educational environment, like memorization is like very like that's the big point of a lot of like like especially GEs here, anything like it's a lot of memorization.
There's no child left behind.
But even that is like, it's, you're gonna remember things that like if you drink the same amount of caffeine, if you like make your body, if you put it in a similar space, if you sit in the same part of class, or if you like smell, if you wear the same perfume, it triggers those memories.
What's the trick that they used to give in undergrad? You have to get a special candy, and you only eat that candy when you're studying that thing. Then right before the test, you put that candy in your mouth.
And so like there are like very, like even if you're thinking about it from like a science, you know, there's memory and learning is very much impacted by the other sensory stuff we do have to like trigger that.
Yeah. Because where does that intellect live? Like we have these jokes now. What's that Futurama show where the brain is living like in the jar? Like the head is in the jar, and they live forever because we don't need the body anymore. It's just his thought, and it goes around. I guess it's the giant pickle jar or something, and it floats around. You guys know?
Yeah, and it's like various celebrities and like former presidents are all just kind of
It's just their head because it lives in your brain, and that's all you really need is your brain. You don't need your hands or your body to move around, or you don't smell anything. Yeah? Okay. So in the Western world, we've always been taught to separate the mind from the body, right? Which is what modernity wants to do. It wants to categorize things. There's this part of your body, and there's this other part of your body, right? But as we move into postmodernism and we realize that that's a problem, Dwight Conkergood is saying, but your body's the one that's doing all the work of ethnography. So what is your body doing when you do ethnography? I think, Anna, you were at East West. Is there anybody else? And is it you guys went together?
Yeah.
Oh, there was like a big gang?
We ushered.
Oh, you ushered? Oh, okay. So,
I ran that concession stand, man.
Yeah, she did really well.
Yeah, she still using hot Cheetos.
wow,
Marina
thank
was
you.
really good at doing the
Scanning the
tickets.
tickets.
Awesome.
Chris was very impressed.
Yeah,
Chris is fantastic.
Big
Love
fan.
Chris.
Great hair.
Amazing, amazing hair. So, what was that physically like? Because you were watching the show very differently. Because you were ushering and you guys just sat, right? So, what was different? I mean, were you able to sit or you had to stand?
No, we sat.
Oh, you sat. You had to wear black pants and a white shirt.
No.
Oh my God, you guys were breaking all the usher rules.
No,
We didn't get any rules.
When we signed up, it just said wear like kind of semi-formal,
Oh.
kind of.
Yeah.
But then we showed up and the other ushers were wearing jeans,
Yeah, they wrote the rules.
and they were like long time ushers.
Yeah, they were experienced ushers. Chris was like, oh, you guys know, you guys just go. And I go to the front.
So what else was your body doing?
We
You were,
like-
you were selling nachos. Your body was selling nachos, so every time you smell nacho cheese now you'll think of Vietnam. And Marina was
Scanning tickets.
scanning tickets. What else?
We sat in the upper part.
Yeah, we sat in the balcony.
In the balcony.
Yeah. So
And then we had to pick up trash after.
yeah, we picked up
Yeah,
trash
picked up
after.
trash
We got to
after.
see what was left.
Yeah. The remains.
The remains.
Right. Anything else? Isabella,
We
Anna, how
opened
was
and
your
closed
experience
doors.
different?
Yeah.
Did you pick up trash?
No, I
No, no picking up trash.
showed up. I consumed some of the
Nachos?
nachos.
So you were served.
I was served. Yeah, I just got there and I sat in my seat. Watched the performance and I
Left.
yeah, I got my car.
Do you see how there's like a difference here? In like if you had dressed the way you're supposed to dress, right? Then it would feel different because you're supposed to dress this way and you're supposed to be in service. Like I am here to sell nachos.
We had
We did
usher
dress
tags.
Oh, you had usher tags.
And we did dress nice.
We dressed nicer than like usual.
Oh, I'm sure you looked lovely. I'm just trying to.
Don't be so sure.
Yeah, sorry.
We looked really good.
I'm sure you were lovely, and I'm sure you had that
I had
wonderful
heels
tag.
on.
Right. But you guys, but what I'm
The
struggling.
difference is
Yeah,
wearing
no,
like
we
a
had-
uniform and now it's
Yes.
elevated because now I'm wearing this.
Yeah.
We
Well,
had
now
like a
what?
prolonged experience. We got to see backstage. We got like the tour of the place.
Oh, get the tour.
Cool.
Yeah, and like we saw like the actors like when
Before
we
they
were
went on.
when we were like closing up the concession thing and just like putting away the ticket thingy, they like all walked up the stairs and they were like, "What's up?" And we are like, "Hey," and then Chris was like, "They're the actors," and we're like, "Oh, casual."
So we saw
Hey.
them.
Yeah.
Like not in character,
Yeah.
which Anna and Isabel, you missed out on that.
We missed out on a lot.
Usher was pretty fun. Made some friends.
So similar but completely different experiences.
Same thing.
Like the same thing, right? Because your bodies were, like your body was ready to be in service, and your bodies were ready to be served. Like I'm here, I have my tickets, and my ticket, and I'm gonna sit still. Whereas at any moment, Meredith could have been like, hey, can you guys help me out with this? And you would have had to go and do that. If there had been like a popcorn fight or nacho fight, you would have had to like burst in and stop that
Right,
and
like
take care of
don't
it.
throw my food.
Right. Right.
This is mine.
So it's interesting that we try to separate the mind from the body when the body is actually the one that collects all the information.
Yeah, and definitely, like, I mean, it goes back to also the way that we're perceived also then impacts the way that, you know, like,
Sure.
I'm perceiving them as being able to do a service for me, so like, I go, you know, and like that changes that, and then also, I think, even just different, like, I always think about this when I'm in the theater, but like, it must be such a different experience to experience theater as like someone who's 6'1" versus someone who's 5 feet, like, and there's like, even just little things like that in the way that we like move through the, like, occasionally I'll wear heels very, very occasionally, I'm like, oh, the world's totally different from here, and it's like a very subtle change, but like, I feel like there's so many things like that that we don't think about because we're like so situated in whatever our like visual presence and like also the way that we perceive things based on that, based on the way people are seeing us, that we get so used to that like then occasionally it's shifted in some ways, like, oh, like that's right, the person next to me is like completely experiencing the same space in a very different
In a very different way. And you really, like men experience the world differently than women do. Right? Did you walk around Little Tokyo?
Yes.
Yeah, what was that like?
So cool.
I wanted to eat everywhere.
Yeah.
But I was full, so like.
We did this eat
Yeah,
before we
I'd
got
eat
there, and then we
before.
got there and we were like, what were we eating?
I remember that it was so bad that I'd be get food.
You hadn't been there before, Anna?
No, I'd been, but I was like really hungry earlier, and I was like, I have to eat. And then when I went, I was like,
Because Ayumi works there, right? You work in Little Tokyo.
Run through?
But you're in Little Tokyo a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's different for you. I'm just trying to get like how our bodies are different in this space and why he's trying to deconstruct the construct of the mind and the body as the mind doing the work. So let's talk about performance. So when you're performing the usher, even if you weren't, maybe we can just pretend. What do you imagine the usher is performing?
It's like smiling a lot.
You're like,
Yeah, and
Yeah. Good posture.
good postures.
kindness and like welcoming.
Bathrooms upstairs.
So you wanted to be like accommodating. Yeah, show me what like the accommodating usher body looks like. Oh, Kenny's, that was a good one. Show her.
I was just like,
Hi.
Yeah.
Smile. You don't really feel like smiling. You're not really laughing about anything, but you're smiling. And sometimes you use that. Do you use the hand?
Well, no pointing. You have to do
Yeah. Restrooms are there, right?
Yeah, you're not allowed to point.
You talk with your hands. Did anybody like want to chat you up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And who was chatting you up?
Well, just like about snacks.
What about snacks?
Like, what's your like least crunchy food? It's like the softest food. Like me and this one guy had like a really intense conversation about like which candy bar was the best for him to take into the show based off like caramel ratio, because it's like you can't really hear your less crunchy than like going for the Snickers, which has peanuts, but he liked Snickers. Whereas we have the Three Musketeers, which is very soft and like kind of cloudy, which wouldn't have made a noise. And then
What about
you-
opening the wrapper?
that I told them you have to open the wrapper. I was like, yes, you can take food into the theater, but you have to open your wrapper before the show starts. That's the rule.
Was this person flirting with you?
No.
It sounds like you're getting hit on.
I
So I just got
don't
protective all of a sudden. Like, was someone hitting on you? Am I here? No, but they were just so. But you felt like you needed to have that conversation.
Yeah.
As inane as
Yeah,
it
I
was.
mean, yeah, I could just like turn around and be like, we can't. Like, I'm not gonna. Like, I'm gonna disregard your question on candy. You know, like, nah. I had to answer his question on candy, even though it's kind of silly.
So you were performing.
Yeah.
Did you say job description?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in your job description.
I thought it was funny, like, we were kind of talking about it briefly, like, we showed up only an hour before the show started, so we were only there for like 30 minutes before people started to pile in. This was both of our first times at the theater, so we didn't obviously know any of the policies or like where the bathrooms were or anything before we had gotten like 30 minutes in. As soon as everyone started arriving, we were like acting like
Like you own the place.
This is
You're
mine.
like, the restrooms are
Yeah,
there.
upstairs.
Yeah.
And people were having like he was asking questions like, "Oh, it's the balcony." It's like, "No, it's this way." And I just got here like 30
8 through
minutes ago.
15, 1 through 7.
Right. So now you have to have ownership of this space.
Yeah, which was just so funny.
Marina really couldn't, like, Chris told her like 30 times that
I
8
really
through 15
struggled.
was on one side and 1 through 7 was on the other.
And
she, like, was-
stage. I also had dyslexia when I was trying to tell people where their seats were based on their ticket.
Right.
And
It
for
was,
some- it was
I
like
feel like I was one of the person you like told. You were like, oh, it's this. No, it's that. You like went back and forth.
yeah, I was like, so then I just stopped telling people because a lot of people seemed like they knew where they were going. But then I went and then I got back into it, so it was very confusing.
I feel like they'd been there, like a lot of people had been there before.
Yeah, there were a lot of like
Had been there a lot more than the 30 minutes that you had been
that
there.
we had been there.
Yeah, like
And
they,
you were performing
they'd seen
the,
We were
So-
telling them where to go, and they
Right.
were like, "We've been here for 10 years." Like, we're
and you're
donors."
performing authority and what candy bar you should get.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm an experienced candy bar eater, so.
Well, thank God you relied on that.
That's why they got her usher. They scouted her.
So what's the performance of an audience member? And any of you can jump in. What's the, like, how do you know what to do when you're like an audience member?
person is good, then you're like, okay, yeah, thank you. He's walking, just step politely, just waiting, maybe reading the program.
Turn off your phone.
You don't really interact with the people sitting next to you. You're just kind of like in your own.
You're in your own little
They
dome
read the program, I feel
and you
like.
watch.
Like
Which is why they don't let kids in there, because kids don't know the rules.
I feel like getting ready for it all, like, I mean, maybe it was the first one. Like, I usually like I changed. Had like the clothes I was wearing at the beginning of the day, and I like went home and like put on a nicer jacket. And like usually the people I see around me are like, you know, like dress up a little bit, and it's not like a formal requirement, but there's something about like you're presenting yourself to the other people, and then yeah, not really. I feel like
What is your outfit supposed to say about you?
Everyone looked pretty nice.
When you what are you performing? Nice. What does nice say?
It's like you respect the people performing enough, and you like made time to come out and look at this. It's like they're doing.
You respect it and you made time and because I went to the movies the other day and somebody was in their pajamas. Like literally, they had pajama bottoms and slippers on, and they just shuffled on in there, and I was like, cool. Wish I thought of it.
It's funny because theater has like a deep-rooted history and like being fancy, but it's also like a lot of WAC majors like minor in theater, and like I feel like WAC majors like we're like not fancy people. We're like, oh, WAC
Isn't there
majors
something
like
called-
barefoot.
Like whack wear? Like you can recognize a whack major by what they're wearing. Is that
Yeah.
true? Yeah, what does a
Yeah,
whack
that's
major
true.
wear? What are you performing when you're performing? I'm a whack
I feel like
major.
we had like
You're saying
I feel like I can't like identify all WAC
Yeah.
majors based off of like their aesthetic, but there's certain people on campus where you look at them and you're like, oh,
They're a WAC major.
you study the art.
I feel like environments are probably not wearing a bra.
So what are you
Yeah,
performing?
braless,
What are you performing and what are you?
jacket.
So how do you perform that you're North Campus? Well, you don't look sad and tired. Okay,
I don't know
how about this one?
Okay, you do. You don't look as sad.
How do you perform that you're South Campus?
yeah.
Depression.
Depression. Now we're gonna bag on South Campus. Depression. What else?
No, they just
Heavy
They're
Not
backpack.
cute.
Heavy backpack.
Yeah, not cute.
Sachi,
Baggy
very good.
clothes.
Not
Baggy
cute.
clothes.
Not cute.
That's the truth.
I didn't want to say it.
Like
No, but I
leggings,
have actually
a
heard
lot of
South
leggings.
Campus, people from South Campus talking when they were in North Campus. Like I walked by these two people who were talking. They ran into each other. They were both South Campus like majors. And they ran into each other in North Campus. And so they were talking to each other and they were like, oh yeah, what are you doing here? And blah, blah, blah. And like, yeah, everyone's so good looking here. It's crazy. It's so funny when I cross the like, border and into
Right.
the area.
When you cross the Bruin Walk,
Yeah.
something happens.
when I
My
picture
friend-
South Campus, I just picture like they were studying all night and like woke up and what they were studying and then like walked to class. Like
Yeah.
they're still wearing their
Yeah.
Because
sweatshirts
what are
and
they
stuff.
performing? What are they performing?
The
School is so
Like that. This is so hard. I have no chance to like wash my hair.
I'm doing everything.
There's like a lot
I
of like
can
activity
to,
inside.
Yeah,
It's
like
athleisure.
like,
Because
there's
I could fall asleep and wake up and keep
and
studying.
it's like still like the, you know like the yeah it's like not like it's not like baggy toughness but it's like easy it's like flattering comfortable. It's like flattering comfortable.
Athleisure or pajamas. Like I've seen
I've seen pajamas.
I've seen a lot of times on South Campus. I don't really see it more like actual, not just like cute sweatpants, but like actually plaid, like Christmas pajamas.
Come midterms, like it's anyone's guess. You know, it's anyone's game.
I've seen like pajamas on North Campus, but they're more like haha, like
Ironic pajamas.
I wore my steel onesie to class.
Oh yeah, it's like an artistic thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an artistic choice.
Yeah. But South Campus is like they roll out of bed and just come straight here.
Like I wore my pajamas, but I also had on like
Why?
makeup.
It's head first. Or I feel like it's head first. Like whenever they're walking.
Yeah, because their necks
Oh.
are breaking from their back.
I mean, but
Oh.
aside from that, even like theatrically, whenever you have a character that leads head first, it's that they're smart.
Oh, right, the
They're dealing
nerd.
with their brain.
Yeah.
They're not smiling.
Right. Okay, so we're getting into this is Austin. Remember that little tiny green book, The Performance of Everyday Life? Anyway, y'all can have to read it sometime in your life, right? So do you guys get like how we perform all the time? Like North Campus, you gotta be cute. Like,
But it's also,
like you have to spend so much time figuring out, it can't be too fancy, it's gotta be artsy, but not too artsy. Oh, I feel defense coming on. Sasha was like, it just comes natural. She's like, wait a minute.
Everyone else.
Well, also I feel like you can tell at least with fall quarter, like on both campuses, who's a freshman and who's a senior.
Yeah.
Oh, what's senior wear?
Not trying very
Not
hard.
trying at all, yeah.
Like freshmen, like put a lot of effort in.
They wear a lot of gear. They wear a lot of Bruin gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
Actually, I don't know. I wear a lot of room gear, but that's just because like I've been wearing
Are you a freshman?
and wearing like my Adidas sweats. And
Well, I remember me and Marina, we were like last year in whatever in Myth and Ritual in like
Oh,
Alice
yeah.
class, like we were like, oh, this kid, like
We
she
could
walked
tell
in, we were like, she's a freshman.
Because she was so
But it was her
like,
attitude.
no,
It was
even
like,
it was good. It was like she was so eager.
Yeah,
to,
she was so eager
to do
to
everything
work.
right and to,
Yeah, like,
to study a ton. And we were like,
and Marina and I left the class and we were like, freshman.
I was taking a midterm this morning and like 5 people kept asking like really, I don't know, what seemed like very obvious questions or like, can we use pen? Like, can we use extra paper? And I was like,
The performing that I'm obedient
Yes.
Yeah.
and that I'm going to do well.
And
And
they're
then by
very
the end,
scared.
you're like,
You know, teachers know that, right? Like, I see right through it. They're like, oh, I haven't seen you all quarter, and now you're asking if you can use pen. I haven't seen you all quarter, now you want to know if it's double spaced.
For First of all, it's always double space. Second of all, don't have phone. Yeah.
Right, but they're performing, right? 'Cause we get this. Yeah? Yeah, Kenny.
It's funny because it's like during the arts open, like it was supposed to be an open house, but they didn't want to call it open house, whatever. And it was like all incoming students.
Right.
I think it was like Arsenio and then someone else were playing a game where they were like trying to see who was a WAC major, who was an arts major, who was a dance major,
Oh
who
my
was
gosh.
an architecture major.
Wow.
I was
Oh, were you in that game, Isabella?
No, I was the new student advisor over the summer, and I had to check all the freshmen in, and it was at like 7 in the morning. So I'd play like a fun like 7 in the morning game with myself, or like I would try to guess, like, and you could know by who their advisor is, like what their declared major is. So I played a similar game of like, I was pretty good by the end.
Yeah.
It was very subtle hints. Sometimes you couldn't even pinpoint it, but I'm like I can tell.
So, were you very good at pinpointing, or were they very good at performing?
Yeah, they're not us.
You guys get this? And do you think that, well, I'm not even gonna ask it like a question. So, it was a mixture of them understanding how to perform, I just got into whack, and performing like my discipline. But also, you have the knowledge, to identify what they were performing. Do you guys get it? I don't know how to explain it, but like, because you're a WAC major, you were like, I know what to look for. And your college students, you're like, I know what to look for, therefore you won at your game, because you're good at it. But you wouldn't have been good at it if they didn't know I should wear a skirt over my pants with Dansville clogs. Like that's the WAC uniform, right? Dansville clogs, some kind of like yoga pants, and then you put a skirt over or a long tunic. And you've got like a really expensive backpack, like one from REI, and like a fancy bottle. You don't have like an Aquafina bottle, you have to have like the fancy. Like, I'm the epitome of like WAC wear. I've spent 20 years of my life dressing for this department. Like, look at my purse. Have you not seen my shoes? Look at my shoes. Like, this is the epitome of WAC wear. There are flowers on my little boots. This is the like, if I were to walk into South Campus, they would be like, can I help you? Because I'm not like, right? If I did not dress this way, if I did not perform this, I would get mistaken for somebody that's supposed to be on South Campus. Right? If I were to wear Crocs, oh my God, if I wore Crocs, if I wore Crocs and my favorite Kirkland pants and a hoodie and no makeup, instantly I could get into like the radioactive building.
I feel like we've been waiting for you.
Yeah, they'd be like, where you been? I'm like, I'm so sorry, I was late. I'm like waiting right away. Right? If I tried to walk down there right now, they would be like, excuse me? You guys get this thing? Yeah.
But then, like now that we're having this conversation and we're saying yes, this is all true, then how do we, like we're falling into stereotypes?
Well, what about when it's true?
And that's the thing, it's like sometimes it's like,
Emma.
I've been giving us like a stereotype, but then I'm like, well that's a stereotype, but then in my mind I'm also, well it's like, well that isn't not true.
You're performing it because you want it to be true. You're performing it because you want to belong to this department. Like, the only reason I wear these ridiculous shoes is so that people are like, oh yeah, she must really be into art. She's eccentric. Because I want to be eccentric. And I want to be artsy. Like, I'm trying to age gracefully, hence I will not color my hair. Because I want it to be true. So, is it a stereotype? What are we reinforcing? What are subjects reinforcing for ethnographers when they show up? Yeah, Riley.
Well, I think like what you're trying to get at, like, especially Kenny's trying to get at too, is like I feel like what you were trying to say were like, oh, like we have these skills where we
Oh, I'm
can
sorry.
pinpoint.
Was that comfort or performance?
Oh, that was just like, oh, I gotta clear up. Like,
Yeah, like it's all there.
Yeah, it's just like we have like I feel like in this department and humanities in general, it's like you have like a more like social awareness of like social cues, and you're able to pick up on those things, but you're also able to pick up on ways where you're like, oh well, are we like stereotyping? Because then that gets into like more of like, oh, the method that we use in WAC is like, whoa, like let's like take a look back, a step back and stuff. But
Oh, because it's a construct,
exactly.
and they're
so-
supposed to be like a real you.
Yeah, and it's what you're supposed to like analyze every little detail possible. So you're like, why are we doing the things that we do? So I think that that's like really interesting to pinpoint out. That I think a lot of times it's like, oh, like South Campus majors kind of like brag about like, oh, we have so much to do to work. Like South Campus, you don't do anything, and da 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 da. And then you're kind of like, well, yeah, like I mean, like our classes are like enjoyable. Like that's what our passions are. So I think that gets back to like, I think it gets back to like what you're trying to describe when you're like, well, are these stereotypes that we kind of like to be put ourselves in? Because South Campus, we're just like, oh, I work so hard in all my classes.
They fall into the culture of exhaustion. Like,
Yeah.
I got 2 hours of sleep. Well, I got 1 hour of sleep. I was up till 2 o'clock in the, I was up till 4:30 a.m. Like, it's
just like
this,
a college thing. Like,
it's
on
this
social-
culture of stressed out, which is why the arts, I think that's why World Arts and Cultures dance is very postmodern, because we're like, rest, take care of yourself, drink water. Take a moment and breathe, focus on your breath. Right? Like that's very postmodern because we're saying, oh, your body is so important, right? Whereas South Campus is very modern because it's like you can just kill off your body. Just keep that mind going. Fill up your body with those energy drinks. You don't need to sleep, you don't need to wash, because it's all about your intellect and your ability to do South Campus stuff.
Is it like Soylent? I feel like that's like the epitome of Soylent. It's like, it's this new thing. Okay, it's like this, I think now it comes in like different ways that you can intake it, but it's basically like by drinking a thing of Soylent. My sister went to like a coding thing recently and came back with a bunch of Soylent. And it's like, you drink it and it's got like all the stuff you like need to keep your body going basically, and it's really popular in like code and like things like that, so you don't need to sit and make yourself a meal.
And you
or,
can
like,
get
sit,
it like
you can just,
delivered to like your house.
Yeah, it's like awful,
gross.
but
It's
it's
like
like,
So it's awful tasting. So you're treating, so it's gas.
right, so it's literally just like
gas.
so
It's like fuel for
keeps
your
it
car.
going, and it's like it's like horrifying to me.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a thing, and my sister goes to this coding day, and like she comes back with Soylent, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Right.
Also, like that does not sound organic.
But I think it goes into that too, where, and I've talked to lots of people I know who are like, yeah, that, I mean, arts people who are like, yeah, that's great, then I don't need to, I can just keep going and doing my work, and I never have to like pause for
Yeah, and then you should say after that, then you should just wear a diaper. Right? Why don't I just give you the Soylent, and you can have a diaper, then you never have to get up, and your mind can just go until forever. Yeah, Kat.
I also think it's interesting that, like, basically, at least I know for the first 2 years of South Campus majors, it's just like you have to make it through because they're trying to weed you out. Whereas, like, you get into WAC and you're in WAC, and it's like you don't have to worry about getting like. Well, like, yeah, there's so many leader classes.
I'm like, oh no, I think I
Like large lectures where it's like if you don't make it, like. Too bad.
It's like they say there's like certain like math classes like math 32B where it's like if you don't get this class then it basically means like you need to find another major.
Yeah, I don't think they like formally kick you out of your major, but it's
it's like-
basically like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's encouraged.
So wait, so they're performing that they belong there.
Sunny like sophomore
Well, it's
year.
just like it's normal for like, I guess professors also perpetuate that idea that like if you aren't getting like the top whatever percent of your class, you shouldn't be that major. Where it's like whack and dance and a lot of like campus. I don't think there are classes like that. Where it's like if you aren't like getting an A, you shouldn't.
Oh, it's harder than that, because if you're not, then they want to talk to you.
But WAC
And they're like,
one.
come into my office, no, let's get real. They'll say, come into my office, what's going on? You're not doing the work, and what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to say when you haven't been, if you're a WAC major, not you, because you're all wonderful and smart, but and you would never ever do this, but you're a WAC major, you're a sophomore, you haven't been doing your work, and if you were a math major, it would be like, done, you're out. But if you're a WAC major, what's gonna happen?
You lie?
What is it?
No, no, just.
They'd ask what's going on at home.
What's going on at home? Thank
Yeah.
you. And what are you supposed to do?
I guess.
Tell them what's wrong.
Have a conversation. What kind of
Work it out.
conversation?
Mental
Vulnerable.
health.
Mental health conversation. Talk about your feelings. Talk about how this is stressing you out. You've got to be super emotionally generous. I'd much rather be in the math class. Like San Juan, out. You've got to be super vulnerable, which is really hard to do.
It's a different kind of weeding though. Like WAC 1 and Dance 1, like a lot of people like take WAC 1 and Dance 1 and transfer out because they're like, this shit's weird. I'm like, I don't like it, and they like can't work their minds to like think the way that like David or like the other
Well, I know like a lot of dance majors, at least in my country, I think it's every year, like a lot of us left.
Yeah.
Because it's not just straightforward dancing.
Yeah, it's not a conservatory.
No, and like people didn't like it. Like a lot of it, I remember after the first year, we were like discussing the dance major, and most of us said like we felt our technique had gotten worse.
Yeah.
Since coming to college.
Yeah.
Because we weren't dancing.
Yeah.
We were just like talking for a year.
This is not Juilliard. I think people think UCLA ranked very high. Not Juilliard. Not a conservatory. This is an R1. This school, the MFA, is not about technique.
That was also the point.
The MFA is choreography, and choreography is a research method. You guys got that, right? Right, Kat?
Yeah.
The MFA here is choreography is a research method, not technique. You're supposed to go someplace else for technique.
No, they told us that. They're like, if you want to go dance, you can find places in LA.
Right,
But it's not here.
right.
It is eventually, but like.
So before Isabella, so I don't want you to take for granted how much you have to, let me back that up. How much work you're putting in to performing, and I don't mean performing like putting on a show, right? Of fulfilling the obligation to be who you need to be in this department. Like, don't take it for granted, and do please see it as a skill set. That ability to pull up vulnerability, that ability to connect, that ability to get very real with people, that is a skill set that will serve you for the rest of your life. And it is a skill set you do not get on South Campus. So I know that there's this hierarchy of like, WAC doesn't really teach you anything. WAC teaches you how to dress. WAC teaches you how to dig deep. WAC teaches you how close to be to a person, how far to be to a person, when you can touch, when you look them in the eye, what you talk about, how much you tell, how much you listen. It's the whole thing. This is like an intensive training on how to be an artist in the Western world. And it's hardcore. It's hardcore. I mean, I see y'all getting tattoos to fit into this department. Drinking, like you have to eat so much organic food, like it's insane. This is the healthiest you will ever eat in your life. Oh no, Anna! Demerit. Anna got a whack demerit.
Yeah.
Preservatives. Well, I get nervous ordering at that cafe up there.
Security.
I get nervous ordering meat. Because I feel like I should have the veggie one. The veggie one panini, because I'm vegan. Right? Like there's, I mean, Scott, remember the Scott Pilgrim movie? The guy has the special powers because he's a vegan.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, yes, Isabella.
Yeah, kind of just going, like this conversation and then also what you were talking about earlier with disciplines and sort of the separation of them. I feel like for me, like the high school I went to sounds like exactly like the one you were talking about in Oakland. It was like very, like everything's connected. You don't get grades, you do the work because you should be doing the work.
Because you love it.
Because you care about the work. Like it was like that sort of mentality. And it was like the most stressful because it's that which is like once you've connected things and once the thing is like not just the thing but that you're doing for school that like somehow has connection to your like life. Oh shit, like this is so much more. And so I think there's like like you're saying with like the meeting with the professor and now suddenly it's about like your home life and it's like almost a therapy session. Like that's so much worse than just like, all right, I guess I'm not gonna be a math. You know,
Guess I'm
because
not
it
gonna be a
has
math
that
major.
depth of like connection to what you're doing, which I think is
And I'm kind of jokey about it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that happening. I think that's a real skill. that thing about when you have to talk about, like, when you have to be emotionally vulnerable.
Oh yeah, I think it's like kind of a fun, I don't know, it is a funny thing to me, but not a real fun, like it is serious, but but I think that it is kind of a true thing within a lot of the stuff that's happening there that I think does have a genuine, like at least for me in my experience is like here, and I was relieved to come to school, like oh, professors who don't know what's going on with my personal life, like amazing. And
Yeah.
there's something very sort of in a way that I think in a class or in school when you're just focusing on one thing and it sort of gets to exist in a bubble, it's like very easy in a sense, even if the memorization's hard. Anyway, just thinking back about like the discipline things and the connecting, and once you've connected to disciplines or once they're not their own thing, they hold a lot more weight, I think.
Because you can reconnect it.
Because suddenly you're not just doing the math, but like the math, but suddenly now the math is like gonna send someone into space, and like that's a huge deal, and now someone's like, you know, so there's once it's connected to something outside of it, and I think it goes back to also the way we like interact with people, and once the work that you're doing has to do with other people.
Yeah, I know all about the actors in Vietnam. Like I cried with one of them the other day. Like we just had a moment about something personal. I had to make a choice because I'm talking to this actor to share something that I usually don't share, and it was really painful, and we both had to have that moment, and we got a better performance out of it.
Did you say that one of them like come to our class?
Did you want one of them to come to class?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have somebody come to class. Yeah, I'll have someone come to class. Sure. Maybe after the night. Yeah. But so please don't like. Absolutely, you're learning a lifestyle with a complete skill set. August, did you have anything? No? Okay, so we've had a good time with our performance. Does the performance ever get turned off, like when Anna eats Cheetos? Or not turned off, but do you ever turn it up, or turn it down, or turn it off? Like when I go home, I just wear sweats. Like, I don't know, it's ridiculous. Anna.
I definitely think, I mean, it kind of goes along with like the concept of code switching of like you kind of perform different parts of your identity or personality in different contexts, and like definitely, yeah, maybe if you're like, you know, in office hours you're talking to a professor or something, you're gonna like turn up the academic side of you or the whack side of you, versus when like later that night like you're at a party with friends, like you're not gonna be like necessarily your full whack self or your full like
Oh no, I think
academic
at a
self,
party,
or
people
like-
turn into complete idiots. Like the performance is to be really stupid,
Yeah.
and it's a compliment. Stupid. Like wow, you're so stupid. That's the performance of being at a party. Like I'm brilliant, but now it's nighttime. I've had a couple beers, and now I'm stupid, and I'm performing it, or I'm performing drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to a college party once or twice. Right? And it's like, I'm so drunk. No, you're not. You're performing drunk. And maybe it's making your buzz better, but you're performing drunk. We've seen performing drunk. Riley and then Isabella.
I was just gonna say, I think I especially feel it like in like being like the fraternity setting and like going from WAC to like fraternity life. It's like, oh, you kind of have to like switch it off or switch it down because it's like, you know, this whole entire like PC culture is kind of like, oh, PC culture. But I know my fraternity is like a little bit different because like there's lots of different personalities and it's very mixed and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still like it's such a different, you know, where you come into WAC and it's like, you know, definitely very liberal, definitely, you know, a lot of times like very progressive views and everything, and so I find it like extremely interesting, and I'm always humbled, kind of like because it's like, oh, I enjoy like the experience of like being in like different realms, kind of, and so it's like kind of refreshing sometimes to like go into a place where people are like so passionate about stuff, and then to go back to a fraternity where people are like, oh, I don't really. Like I'm gonna like walk, like it's gonna be like 3 in the afternoon, somebody's like in their pajamas or something, you know, like, so I think it's definitely, you definitely turn it on and turn it off at times.
I'm not gonna forget Isabella and Emma, but I just wanna take it back a little bit. This is exactly what happens when the anthropologist, ethnographer shows up at your house. You're like, I'm gonna totally play this fool. Because it's kind of fun. Like, what are you studying? Oh, you're studying that, are ya? Let me just play that up for you. Because there's this element of now I have some agency. Like you think you can come up into my house and learn about whack majors at home. Like I don't know. Like if some ethnographer were to go to your house and be like, so what's it like being a whack student? I don't know, you'd be like stretching out in your living room, eating something organic, talking about art. You would hide your TV, hide my TV right away. Right? Yeah, it's that exact same thing that you're talking about, Riley. It's the exact same thing that Dwight Conquer-Good is talking about, that when ethnographers will go into a site, and they're privileged because obviously you're the stranger, the whole group will feel like you just felt when you switch back and forth. That's what all those pages were about. Because, like we just woke up when we talked about how we have to code switch. And we like laughed. Because it's not, you're a better version of yourself. You're getting a better version of yourself, and and that's a gift you're giving to someone who's looking for something in particular. Like, I want to study feminism, and I would be like, oh, okay, let me be like a super mommy now. Because I know that's what you want, so I'm going to give it to you because I'm a nice person. I want to learn about academics. Well, let me get my glasses, because I know you want the professor experience. So now I'm going to give you the professor experience, because this feels very good. Right? Yeah, I have a lot of students. I started writing in fountain pens, because students love fountain pens. They're like, ooh, a fountain pen. I'm like, yes, like in the Middle Ages. I also write with a feather. Right? Like I mean, they're fun now, but inevitably, someone always comments on my pen. Because I want to be that. You want that professor performance, and I want to give it to you. So sure, here. Sure. Yeah? I know we're joking, but I don't want there to be like a negative connotation. Like, this is life. This is life, and Dwight Conquer-Good is saying there is no way that you can go into a spot and think that you can separate your mind and your intellect from your body, because your body is performing something and is being asked for things that probably wouldn't happen before you got there. So that's what he's offering. Emma, then, oh, I'm sorry, Isabella, you had your hand up before, and then Emma.
Oh, yeah, it was actually kind of what you were saying too, which is like, there's one thing to be said about like, the sort of like code switching that Anna was talking about in terms of like, you go into the group of, like I'll go hang out with all my friends who are art majors, and there's like, I guess you're saying different things.
Because they want
You're
it.
doing that, but then there's also, I think, in this goes a little bit more on like the things, like there's an expectation. Like again, over the summer I was a student advisor, and I was the only art person, like I was the only person within the School of Arts and Architecture
Oh, did you represent?
who was doing that, and it was like,
You were
yeah,
like
it was
a
like
Lola?
really, it was like really funny. They were like, yeah, no, like all the other, yeah,
It's a grant. She's like, welcome, students.
yeah, and it was like, and it was a very, it was a funny, because I'm like, always, like I rarely delve, you know, but it was like, oh, that's so interesting, like that's like, and I was like, really? Okay, like yeah, I know, it's like really interesting, huh?
Yeah,
and you really go, and you're like, okay, like if I'm gonna be the art major, the like the one you got, then sure, and it's so like I think it is very much about the expectation that's putting forth, especially I think if there's, you know, like I think you mentioned this also, like it's kind of fun to like either play into or break the expectation that you're sort of given, but I think as much as sometimes it's maybe play it up with the people who are also playing it up all together, like all the art majors are playing up there's also a thing of playing it up when you're not you know, ooh, this is different, like ooh, you're so different because you're an art major. Yeah, sure.
Because they want that.
Right, because they want it, and so I think it's fun.
And you know, and they want it because it reinforces who they are.
Yeah.
By saying, oh, you're different from who I am, means I'm more of who I am.
Well, I think also for the person, it's like that's like a mutual thing, because then it's like I go in there and think, oh yeah, I am different than here. I do have a different, so I'm gonna like play that up to reinforce mine, because I'm a group of a bunch of science majors, so I'm gonna like really play up that I'm not a science major, because like.
And now we see how the discourse continues to be reinforced. I mean, that's why it's so strong. That's why it's so prevalent. Like we see it everywhere, and it's really hard to break from it. Yeah, because we're nice. Emma and Melissa.
I was gonna say, like, it is, like, in a way, I feel like in the beginning, like everyone, like all my friends are like psychobio majors for the most part. I don't know why. They just kind of
It's the closest to med school.
yeah. They just all ended up being psychobio majors, and like, but like I was the black friend, like, and then at
Oh
first,
no, you were like the one black friend.
so yeah, like the token black major, like I was
Yeah,
the black
The
friend.
token black
And
friend.
like, and at first I didn't like. I was like, I always felt myself always like defensive about it, and like, cause they kind of gave me shit for it. But now, like later now, like I'm still the black friend, but I'm very proud of it, and like they're jealous of it. I feel like that like I got to have this education, but I don't feel myself switching when I leave this room because like I've always been the friend who's in WAC, and like WAC has like really influenced me so much that like even when I'm out with them now, like they expect me to have that weird thought and to say that weird
Oh,
thing
sure.
because I'm like the WAC friend, and I'm going through this like weird transition where in January I'm like not gonna be an art major anymore, like I'm gonna be doing science stuff, and I keep thinking to myself like I don't want to lose my WACness, so like I don't know, like it like has become like it, I
Just
can't.
get your ears pierced a bunch and tattooed. You'll be fine.
I don't really want to become one of them.
Tattoo your face so that no one can.
Yeah, tattoo your face.
Like I feel like
No
black
one will
has
ever-
become my identity. Like no matter where I am, like it's like I'm a black.
Just get whacked.
It's like well in college, like the first thing someone asks you is what's your major.
Yeah.
It's like what's your name, what's your major.
And what you don't know is that WAC is a superpower. People are afraid of WAC majors.
It's true.
People are totally afraid of WAC
They don't
majors.
get what it is.
Because you will totally judge and you'll totally back into the oppression of why they are wrong. It's an amazing passive aggressive superpower. Sorry, but you should just know that at any moment you can be like, well, I think you're being a little anthropological. Because I'm postmodern. And I know the body. Yeah, it's, Alyssa, and then we have to go into rhetorical. Sorry, I know we've been pushing it. You've been playing me to not go into the rhetorical issues of it. Yeah, Alyssa.
Well, like, it's kind of similar to what she was saying. I was gonna comment on there's something to be said about like not being able to turn your performance back on. It's because I think a lot of people experience this. But I come from like a small town, and then I came here, and like I just became more developed because I got older, you know. And so then I go back, and then my friends from my small town who are in like small towns in Oregon and stuff are exactly the same, and I'm a lot different. So then it's like I get back there and they expect me to perform a certain way, but I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't know. I was just like thought I would want to add that to the conversation because it's like, well, what happens when you can't be in a space anymore because your performance isn't valid anymore?
It's not that you can't.
It's just not part of you.
Yeah.
It's not that you can't. It's that you won't. You're just like, I'm just not gonna do that anymore. Because you grew and you made a decision. And that decision is real for you. And you're like, no, I'm not going back. And I'm kind of tearing up. Because the thought that you went to college and you were like, no, the stuff I learned, like, is in me now. And it's not that you can't. It's that you won't because you grew. That's really, look at this. I'm like, look at me, I'm such a dork. Yeah, Kat.
I don't think I'm a part of a lot of things on campus, and they all definitely have like slightly variations of like whatever my true self is, whatever that might be. But I don't know if the performance ever necessarily turns off for all of them, but I definitely had moments where like and even when I go like home, my apartment has tropes, we're all very similar, but like one of us is the political one, I'm the artsy-ish one, or like the one who's too involved. But I've had moments where like I think about it and I actually made a list sometimes of like the versions of myself that I prefer to the other ones. Like I like my wax self maybe, and is anyone else here in a sorority? No, cool, just me.
Riley's in a fraternity.
But there's like definitely like there's also like a sorority self that I'm not a huge fan of, and there's like a sorority self that we like my sorority jokes about that we all have during rush, where like we tell everyone exactly what they want to hear in a site, like my voice will probably go up like half an octave and be like, hi, I'm Callie. Oh my God, you're this major? No way, tell me more. And it's just like, oh, like that version of myself
Wow, yours are very distinct.
is not, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're
yours are very distinct.
They're very distinct.
Which-
They're like, I have like a pap stuff, which is like,
So I just want to like put a note in, do not forget, when we're reading about Jameson, and he talks about schizophrenic anxiety. And when he talks about schizophrenia, if I forget, someone go, remember what Kat was saying about her list? Because that is, postmodernism does develop a schizophrenic anxiety. I'm very excited for Wednesday. I'm very excited. Let me tell you, postmodernism like flipped me out because I was like, oh my God, I get it. I get all these different performances. I get how they become embodied, but they're so distinct because of the discourse that we all reinforce and that we all survive in.
I don't think any of them are necessarily like,
No, they're not bad.
maybe that last version was like not completely myself. But like none of them are like that far from how I actually feel. They're just like, I know what certain people expect of me and how they want me to perform, so I perform to that.
Yeah.
And it's just sometimes I like the version I am better than the other versions.
It's interesting that you talk about it being a closer version of yourself.
Is there such thing?
Yeah.
No, it's who you, it's telling you what you like and what you don't like. Because I think so often you're told what you're supposed to like and what you don't like. And this visceral reaction you're having to like not liking that person, that means you don't like it. That just means you don't like it, right? My kid had an existential crisis. She goes, how do I know what I like? It's a big question. How do I know what I like?
All the time.
You figure it out by what you don't
Most
like.
of the time.
Exactly, but the way you think about it is a closer version to myself.
So impacted also by like what other like people around you are interested. Like yeah.
As opinionated people just have like had more life experiences with people.
I don't think so.
Y'all do not want to get to rhetorical.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I disagree, but that's fine.
I promise this will be part of the
I said
performance
it, I don't
thing.
agree with it anymore. Nope. It
Remember
came
we
out
went
of
from
my mouth, it was wrong.
embodied to performance to rhetorical? Rhetorical is how you perform. How do you perform it? And anthropology has always performed in that academic voice, which I think we don't like, but we're supposed to like it. And what that voice is not, it's third person, and it's active, right? How many of you have gotten that thing that says passive voice when you write? But that's how you talk, right? Who talks in that? So, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what's an example of a passive thing. Here, in order to, right? How do you make this active? In order to run, or to run. Do you guys get what's happening here? I'm trying to give another example. Sometimes I teach women's studies, and the exercise we always play is in your next class. Pay attention to how, maybe not in the WAC class, how women will pose a comment as opposed to men. Is it? What is it?
The rising inflection?
It's the rising inflection, but it's usually in a question.
Yeah, it's always a question. It's usually questions in a statement. Like, where's the man? Just state.
Right. Because the active voice, and they don't want to tell you this, is male. Subaltern. Spivak. Which is why the subaltern cannot speak. Which is why women cannot speak. Because the real voice is male. And why do you write why can you not write in first person? Why can't you say, I think?
It's not objective.
It's not objective. It's too subjective. And to be objective is to be omnipresent. And it means you're right. So the examples in the reading, right, about what they would say about the Filipinos, the WAC majors, let's do this. If they said, the WAC majors, are emotional, right? That's very active. It's very omnipresent, right? and it has a sensibility that it's true. You guys get it? So what's, I'm gonna try to find, I always fail at this. I always like underline things that I say, oh yeah, I should read this in class. Is it?
Glasses.
Well, I actually, these are from Costco, because I actually can't read the little print. I try to do this dumb thing where I print 2 pages on 1 page to save treats, because I'm a whack major. It's in the last 2 pages, where it's no longer scientific, where it's rhetorical. It's how you present it. It's the seer's rhetoric, right? The person who sees offers a rhetoric. Combination of terms, experimental. I can't find it. What am I thinking? Can you guys find it? It's the example of rhetorical phrase. The way of saying is the what of saying. So what's a way that you would say something that would I feel like I just thank you, Sasha.
Well, just reminds me, like, my mom would always say, like, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Like, when, like, me or my sister would, like, have an attitude. It's like, she'd like, I never said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
That's how you say it.
And I feel like that kind of, you can say a lot with that, like, without words, like, how you.
And the academic voice is a way of saying it, and it's a performance. It's a performance that I'm sure, I'm confident, I can prove it, and it's almost like don't question me. Third person, active voice, which goes back to Spivak. Male, Western, authoritative. Ooh, I kind of ended on a bummer.
Such as
We're all,
that.
we were
I'm
all
like-
so into talking before about performing, but yeah, and this and this.
I know, and now you're like super bummed out. Well, I mean, but it's also,
That's the epitome of
he offers an intervention where he says, like it's crazy that you guys have to write as much as you do. Because it's almost like 2 performances. Don't you have like your whack writer and then your whack performer? Yeah, who do you like better?
I mean,
Whack
just
performer.
based off the way that like I think some of us speak in this class, we probably couldn't write that way.
Yeah.
Just saying like, I think this is bullshit. Like you can't put that in paper. You can say it in class. It's definitely a very whack thing to be able to talk like that.
Yeah, but how would you perform it? If you're gonna say this is bullshit, and you're gonna perform that, right? The way you say it has much more information than the way you would write it. Like, this is bullshit! It's very different from, this is bullshit. You get it? And so he privileges performance over the written word. But the problem of the written word is it's what made up the academe. It's why we're here. Like we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the text. And it's what we rely on, and it's what you get a grade on. Like, if I didn't give you an artist statement, I would have to give you all A's. Because how am I gonna judge your project? Well, I would give you all A's, but you know what happened to Peter Sellers?
What happened?
His A's aren't worth much.
Yeah, his A's were really worth a lot of my GPA.
Wait, to who though? Wait, doesn't he always give A's to his
He always
students?
does.
Yeah. So you would
So if you say, oh, I got an A in Peter Sellers' class, it would be like,
well, yeah.
oh, good for you.
I thought you were implying like something happened to them, like they were like get cracked
Oh,
down.
no.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, he's fine. But a lot of people say it was like one of the greatest college experiences of their life.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So it is
That's the thing.
No one even talks about the grade they got because everyone gets an A. So
And
we just
everyone
talk
goes
about
because they
the
want to.
experience.
Well, that's his point. But you know, the school's super mad at him.
Except for a lot of people don't go just 'cause
And then, but a lot of people don't show up.
it's
It's like
Like
the
the entire
average.
football team don't show up.
Although
class is
online.
like
So if I were, so if why, So I require the artist statement because I have to have a rubric and we have to grade one another's projects because you're expecting a grade and you're expecting to work hard for that grade. And so I perform professor and give you what you want. And in order to do that, in this context, it has to be written. Because that's why I have to give a syllabus. Like if there's nothing written, I can't give you a grade. There has to be some kind of rubric. Because that's what we're doing here.
Do you not do a rubric for a non-written thing?
For a non-written thing,
Like, do you
it's
not think
super
that you do?
subjective. Because there's so many points of, there's just a multiplicity of information that comes with the performance, and there's no way, like you shouldn't record it because it flattens it. So, it's really hard to, it's much harder to grade. Well, here's a good question that would go back to the rhetorical thing. It's why it's harder to grade a performance than it is a paper. What would you rather grade? A performance or a paper? Like a paper. You'd be like misspellings, 1 point off. Passive voice, 1 point off. No thesis, 2 points off. You guys get it? No organizational structure, 5 points off. Done, done, and done. A performance, you can say, I don't feel like you were really performing. What? You can't say that. I don't feel like, I mean, it's why improv is such an intervention. Like I mean, how many of you have, or I have done it, where I have faked a performance, I just start improv. Because I'm good at it, and I just bullshit my way through it.
I mean, I hate to say that, like, I think that's a skill.
It is a skill.
Yeah, but like, it is.
It is a skill to bullshit your way through it, and we all know it, right? But to think, and that's why improv is such an intervention, because it takes a lot of skill to do improv well. Yet it's not rehearsed. Yet it is rehearsed. You guys get it? I'm like, improv's like, ah. So, okay, so the last thing is the shift from modernity to post-modernity. So what Dwight Conkergood is saying is that ethnography lived in the world of anthropology, which was within the modernity project. But now he's shifting it into the postmodern. Because in the postmodern, the shift back to the body and back to performance is almost impossible to categorize. Right? Which is the postmodern project. Like to be able to take the elements of a performance and try to break it down into a rubric. That's very difficult to do because it's postmodern. It jumped off the train. To say that the body is actually integral over the mind in collecting that data, right? The sloppy, sinful, carnal, messy body, to elevate it to the same level as the mind, jumped off the modernity train. Because you're flipping things around. Yeah. And so now we're going to enter into postmodern world. So this is an example of modernity to post-modernity using ethnography. Aaron is getting lots of photos because Jameson uses the visual arts to talk about how we have shifted from this idea of, you guys know what modern art looks like? You guys know what modern art, yeah? It's an aesthetic that's supposed to be universally pleasing, which is why it'll be like a blank canvas and like a line. And the way the line is supposed to create some kind of aesthetic reaction because it's so clear or it's off-center but it doesn't matter what culture you are because we stripped it because we're going towards Progressville. And in Progressville, right, we've let go of that and now we're intellectuals and we can see modern. You guys, yeah. But you can't strip an aesthetic off of art. You can't. It's impossible. And so we live in a postmodern world, which I don't know if we'll get into it, but it's why my parents aren't very literate, I'm super literate and my kid is meme literate. Because the future is memes. We're a highly visual culture now. It's all memes and the Facebook thing and the Instagram. Like, have it in your lifetime, have you become more visual?
This might be a stupid question, but like, where does the word meme come from?
I don't know.
Because like, I just, like, it must have been invented recently.
Yeah,
Because,
it's old,
you know.
but it like refers.
Oh, is it mimetic? I bet you it's off mimetic. Ooh, I'm so smart.
What's it
Oh my God, I just
meant?
thought that. I just made that up.
But you're
Is it mimicking something? Mimicking, but like, because there's so much meaning, right? Like, in order to get a meme, I mean, I'm not joking when I say there's like meme literacy.
Yeah.
Because you have to know where that photo came from.
Yeah.
Like, what was the thing my friend did, which was really awful? It was her kid crying, and it was the lady in Oakland that had called the police because her neighbors were having a barbecue.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and so she cried, but Marina's like, oh yeah, I know that. And now we can stop talking.
Yeah.
Right, we can totally stop talking, because you're like, oh yeah, I know that meme, done. You guys know, Marina, you wanna tell the backstory of why that?
Actually, so I don't know the meme, but I was saying I know the
Oh, the story.
911 call.
The meme is the woman on the phone and she's crying. It's a white woman. Her black neighbors in Oakland are having a barbecue. The barbecue, basketball game? Barbecue. Having a barbecue, and she's like, they're harassing me. And she calls the police. And another white woman walks by and is like, what is your problem? They're not bothering you. You're harassing them. And she's like, no, they're harassing me. And she, right? And then she starts to cry. And someone like took a photo and made it a meme. So all that backstory, and were there words?
to the meme.
Yeah, because sometimes the meme has like a word.
But changes based on circumstance.
I think people will like take one. I mean, like I think that with a lot of them, like it's a single image, and then the text will change based
Oh, I
on
get
like different relationship.
So they're applying.
Like
the
you know,
photo for
like
the
there's like a
different
format, and then you get like their format, and you like play with that bit. So you could take that and do something that like is very specifically for like anyone in this class, but like only you would probably only get it, and then there's things that like stretch. So it's like very much about like your.
So you could use that picture and then put San Juan's class,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden there would be like meaning.
yeah.
You could put that picture and go whack 104,
Yeah.
San Juan, and everyone would be like, I totally get it.
Yeah,
Got it. But that's speaking to how performative we have become, that a picture can hold so much information, and we're actually using it more than we are text, because we're changing. Yeah,
It's
Kenny.
funny that you brought up the fact that there's like a format to memes.
Yeah.
And my roommate has like way better like meme literacy than I do. And then
I just made that up and it's
yeah,
funny.
it's yeah. Like he showed me memes that he calls them surrealist. memes.
And what are the surrealist memes?
That it's like I don't understand them at all. Like literally, it's like just a mashup of different like random things, and that's a surrealist meme.
And
Or
that's
like
supposed to be funny about it?
yeah,
The more random.
yeah.
Oh, the more random. Oh my god.
But it's like using already pre-existing memes, but like altering them even more, and then like
Right. And that's why the world feels like it doesn't make sense. Because someone took a meme and said, I'm gonna go extra, and now it really doesn't mean anything. And if you weren't following the story all along, okay, prepare. If you were not following the story all along about how your roommate got to
I think that he calls them surrealist.
surrealist memes, you have a semiotic break. Because now what you thought meant something means something else. And that's when you feel schizophrenic. Because when you are schizophrenic, you're upset and you're hearing voices, but you're upset because you keep saying, you keep thinking, this is a banana, this is a banana, this is a banana, and everyone's like, no, it's a pen. And you're like, no, it's a banana. They're like, no, it's a pen. Those are evil voices, those are evil voices. No, that's the air conditioning vent. No, those are evil voices, I know it. It's because the thing that we have learned, remember the semiotic thing with Stuart Hall? It broke. So now everything around you that's probably safe feels unsafe. And that's how schizophrenia is diagnosed. So in the postmodern world, we are all living in a schizophrenic reality, in that all of a sudden these pictures have all this meaning. You get it? And if you weren't following along, like the baby boy that's like this, like if you don't know that meme, then you don't understand when it gets to this, when someone makes it extra. And Riley's nodding like, I think I
I'm
may have.
like super confused, but at the same time, like I think I know it.
Yes, and you will not, that was me. That is exactly, like, you were kind of getting postmodern, where you're like, oh shit, I think I can almost see where we're gonna connect the dots on Wednesday. So, Jameson is not fine. It's long, it's very difficult. I gave you a little cheat, sections 3 through 5. That's where we're really gonna dig into. Don't forget Hall, Hall's, the active representation, because the break is why nothing makes sense today, and social media and the internet and our phones are just making it go faster and faster and faster. Faster and more fragmented. And that is how Trump became president. Because the discourse has fractured and deepened. Gosh, I keep ending on a bummer note, sorry.
I feel like that one was like a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It's like, and that is how Trump became, like,
Yeah, I know, that's right. So make sure, so I'm begging you. Let's look at the reading.
Oh, it's on, like,
So go vote, but look at the reading, because it would be great if this reading could help you, I don't wanna say heal, but traverse who you are in this department and who you are outside this department. I think it's really important that you understand the mechanics of how that happened and can talk about it in a really smart way, because you are probably the leaders of the postmodern movement as artists in this age. Yeah? Okay, so don't, cliffhanger, Wednesday, look at Frederick Jameson, and then you can brag to everyone. I understood postmodernism in Jameson. Sure, everybody goes here.